Hi, now we're going to look at rounding. So before we go straight into rounding, let's try and figure out what this word means. Firstly, if the height of a table is 61 centimeters, is this height approximately 60 centimeters or 70 centimeters? Remember, we previously learned the word approximately. So if we use a number line to help us, 61 is closer to 60. This means that the height of the table is approximately 60 centimeters. Do you remember last year in 3 Excellence, there were 36 students? Were there approximately 30 or 40 students in the class? If we use our number line to help us, we can tell that 36 is closer to 40. Hence, there were approximately 40 students in the class. What we just did was called rounding a number to the nearest 10. To round a number to the nearest 10, we need to determine the 10 which is closest to the number. So what does that mean? When we determine a 10, it means that it can be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, or even numbers that are bigger than that. So let's start off with 2-digit numbers. So if I want to round 47 to the nearest 10, how do I do that? I know that if I use a number line, 47 will be somewhere near where the cross is. So is this nearer to 40 or 50? If I look further and divide my number line into more parts, I can tell that 47 is nearer to 50. Hence, I would say that 47 is 50 rounded off to the nearest 10. Now, if you look at this symbol means approximately equal to. It looks different from the equal sign because it does not mean that 47 is equal to 50. It means that it is approximately 50. Now, let's round 42 to the nearest 10. 42 will be somewhere near where the cross is. And if I further divide my number line into smaller parts, I know that 42 is nearer to 40. That means that when I round 42 to the nearest 10, it is 40. Now, what if I want to round 23 to the nearest 10? I do the same steps, and I know that 23 is somewhere near where the cross is. If I divide my number line further, I know that 23 is closer to 20 compared to 30. This means that when I round 23 to the nearest 10, the answer is 20. Let's try another number. What if I want to round 68 to the nearest 10? I follow the same steps. 68 will be somewhere where the red cross is. If I divide my number line into smaller parts, it will be somewhere here. And I know that the cross is nearer to 70 compared to 60. This means that when I round 68 to the nearest 10, the answer is 70. What about 85? 85 is in the middle of 80 and 90. And if I divide my number line into smaller parts, it is right in the middle. our convention in mathematics is that for the ones digit being 5, when we round to the nearest 10, we round up. This means that when we round 85 to the nearest 10, we will choose 90 instead of 80. And this is the convention in mathematics. Hence, when we round 85 to the nearest 10, the answer is 90. Okay, so to recall, to round a number to the nearest 10, we need to determine the 10 which is closest to the number. This doesn't mean that they can only be two-digit numbers. If you look, if I add 100 in front, these numbers are considered tens as well. For example, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, or 200. What do you notice about these numbers? For a number to be considered a 10, the digit in the ones place will be a 0. Now, what happens if I want to round 148 to the nearest 10? Actually, I just follow the same steps as I did previously. I first need to figure out where in the number line does this number fall. And I know that it is somewhere here. If I divide my number line further, I know that 148 will be where this red cross is. So, is it closer to 140 or 150? 148 is closer to 150. So, when I round 148 to the nearest 10, the answer is 150. And just as a recap, this symbol means approximately equal to. Let's try another 3-digit number. What if I want to round 163 to the nearest 10? 163 will be somewhere here. And when I divide my number line further, 163 will be where the red cross is. Is this closer to 160 or 170? It is closer to 160. This means that when I round 163 to the nearest 10, the answer is 160. What about 346? If I look at the number line here, does 346 fall anywhere within this number line? No. So what do we do? We can figure out what are the tens that 346 are between. And that will be 340 and 350. So actually, we can skip one step and go straight to the second step. 346 will be somewhere here. And this means that when I round 346 to the nearest 10, it is 350 because the red cross is nearer to 350 compared to 340. Now, let's round 255 to the nearest 10. Can I use this number line to help me? If you notice, 255 does not fall within this number line. Hence, we can skip to the second step like we did earlier. Can you tell which two numbers 255 is in between? It will be 250 and 260. And where is 255? It is right in the middle. Do you remember just now when we were trying to round 85 to the nearest 10? Do we round up or do we round down? So the convention in mathematics is that when the digit in the ones place is a 5, we round up. Hence, when we round 255 to the nearest 10, the answer is 260. This even works for 4-digit numbers or 5-digit numbers. Let's look at some examples. If I want to round 2,143 to the nearest 10, what should I do? If you recall from earlier, tens are numbers that have the digit in the ones place as 0. So, do I know what 2,143 is in between? It is actually 2,140 and 2,150. And where does 2,143 lie on this number line? It will be here. So which number is it closest to? 2,143 is closer to 2,140, which means that when we round it to the nearest 10, the answer is 2,140. Let's try another 4-digit number. What about 1,099? Can we tell which two tens 1,099 is in between? It is actually 1,090 and 1,100. Where in this number line does 1,099 fall? It will be right here. So, is it closer to 1,090 or 1,100? It is closer to 1,100. So when we round 1,099 to the nearest 10, the answer is 1,100. This even works for 5-digit numbers. We follow the exact same steps as we did for 4-digit numbers. If I want to round 13,049 to the nearest 10, firstly, I start off with my number line, and I need to figure out which two tens is 13,049 in between. Can you tell what the two numbers are? It is 13,040 and 13,050. The number we are looking at is where this red cross is, and it is closer to 13,050. This means that when I round 13,049 to the nearest 10, my answer is 13,050. Now let's try one last number. What happens if I want to round 21,451 to the nearest 10? Can you tell what the two endpoints should be? They are 21,450 and 21,460. 21,451 will be here, which is closer to 21,450. Hence, when I round it to the nearest 10, the answer is 21,450. Now, you are ready to try practice 7.